Hey guys, welcome back to the Franchise Tagged Podcast Season 2, Episode 6. Check us out on Spotify. Always got to plug that at the start of the videos because we'll forget otherwise. Also
hmm
subscribe and everything. But let's get into this episode. We've got, as always, our Pick'ems recap, a couple game-by-game things that we want to go over, a couple between the week topics, and then a coaching seat temperature check as our little fun segment for the week. And then we'll get into any stock moves that we want to make, any pick'ems that we're doing this week, and then
Any
we'll.
pick'ems? I think we're making all of the pick'ems this week.
No, I'm gonna refrain from a couple of them for sure.
I got really upset with how it went last week, so I'm gonna go ahead and just not do it this week. I'm gonna opt out. You're right. I should do
Yeah.
that.
Well, if I mean we should get into the pick'ems recap since we're talking about it so much. That's just me though. I had a career week, if you will. I went 11-3, and I went back and checked. I have it written down on my notepad here. This is the first week of pick'ems ever. Oopsie. Ever that I've
Ever.
done with all the early games and Thursday night football correct. I have never done that before. I've never predicted all of the early games and Thursday night football. I don't even think I've predicted all of the early games, excluding Thursday night football. I got Falcons over Bucks, Vikings over Jets, Bears over Panthers, Ravens over Bengals, Texans over Bills, Jags over Colts, Dolphins over Patriots, Commanders over Browns, and Broncos over Raiders. All those correct. And then I missed on the 49ers over Cardinals, got the Packers over the Rams, missed on Seahawks over Giants, and got the Cowboys over Steelers, and then missed on Saints over Chiefs.
Yeah. A little more unfortunate for me. I went 8-6 this week, and it feels like every single one that we disagreed on was what I ended up getting wrong. Because we had a couple of agreements that we both missed on. I also picked the 49ers to win, and they really choked that game away. But the other misses I had this week were picking the Bills over the Texans, which down to the wire. Colts over Jags, Bucks over Falcons, of course, didn't hit. That was Thursday night. And then Seahawks over Giants and Steelers over Cowboys. So only the two um, ones that we can relate for were the ones that we got one disagreement that I ended up getting right and you didn't. So
Well, I mean,
not a great week for
that's
me.
opposite most weeks. I feel like most weeks the ones we agree on, we both get right, and then the ones that we disagree on, you get right. And that's why you beat me a lot of the weeks in pick'ems. But unfortunately, my lock was on the Seahawks over the Giants, which I thought was just a home run, and that was incorrect. The Seahawks freaking lost on a blocked field goal return for a touchdown.
Yeah. The For my lock of the week, I had mine on the Commanders beating the Browns, and I get to cash that one in. And now I'm sitting at 2-3 on my lock record for the year. You're sitting at 3-2. I'm getting to bridge that gap now after I believe was in like 1-3 start. So
Yeah, yeah. I really like going into Monday night. I was like, I don't know why I picked the Saints over the Chiefs. Start of Monday night, I was like, yeah, still don't know why. Derek Carr chucked up that ball, and I was like, yep, still don't know why. But I felt the same way about why I was picking the Cowboys over the Steelers, where I was like, I should flip this. The Steelers are probably going to win it. You're probably right, and I didn't flip it, and I was good. So I'm not mad at myself for not flipping that Saints pick. If they had won it, I would have felt so vindicated, and I would have felt so smart. But unfortunately, it did not happen.
yeah, let's start off the week here with Thursday night football. The Bucks and Falcons. I mean, that was a historic game for the Falcons, for Kirk Cousins, setting the passing record for the franchise, and it's his fourth, fifth game with him. So, you know, historic night there. And then I have one very notable shout out for that final drive, and that is shout out the referee Barry Anderson, because we have seen in the past, and man, I I saw it on Reddit. I sent it to you. That was horrible. I'm just gonna gloss over that though. Shout out Barry Anderson, because we've seen it in the past where refs and the O line kind of have a miscommunication on setting the ball late in the game, and then there's a penalty because the center sets the ball himself and snaps the ball, and then the ref never touched the ball, so therefore penalty. Barry Anderson, he ran up. The ball was not handed to him, and the Falcons set the ball on the ground. He agreed with the spot, so he just reached down and tapped it and got out of dodge. I mean, shout out the ref for not fumbling away that opportunity and making it like a flag and then this whole ordeal of afterwards.
Yeah, or like the Cowboys game where Dak did the QB draw, slid down, and then the center moved the ball up 2 yards. And it's like, you can't do that. Either the ref is not going to agree with the spot if you move it up. It's very clear that in the Cowboys game, that's what happened. And in the Falcons game, the center placed it perfectly. If you actually watch the replay instead of just, hating the fact that the Falcons were able to get that snap off, Cowboys fans looking at you, then you can see
Cowboys Reddit.
Yeah. But the center put it in a perfect spot. The ref said, "Yep, that's good with me." Tapped it and went on his way, and that's exactly how it should be. So normally we do a lot of ragging on referees here, and that will happen this season. But Barry Anderson, shout out, that was a good thing to do, and we can be positive about the refs. We can do it.
Yes, we need to recognize good refs, so that way complaining about the refs doesn't seem so one-sided. As a constant background noise. You need to show we will support the refs when something good or cool or a good call is made, because otherwise it's just an echo chamber of hate. But with that said, do you want to get into the Sunday morning football game that was out in London?
Yeah, so I was not watching the entire time. I was otherwise occupied for a large portion of that game, but I did catch a little bit of it towards the end, and man, Aaron Rodgers just looked like he's obviously old for a football player. He's 40 now, I think. But he looked old. Like, when you're watching football players and you're like, wow, he's moving really well for his age, when you consider how football players are normally moving at that age. Yeah, no, that was not Rodgers. He was like, any hit he took, he was like, it looked like he tore every muscle in his body every single time he took a hit and had to just put himself back together and then stand up and then limp to the line and then snap it. And I do have a piece to say on the Jets, but I think we'll get to it a little bit later. I think I'll bring it up down here.
We got some news on the Jets even so from today, but with Rodgers, the hit he took, where he was. I feel like you might have even tweeted at Art But Sports about it.
I think I did.
That angle, he's an old man and he's taking a hard hit like that late in the game. I don't imagine he's gonna be so running around the pocket and doing a whole lot of maneuvering there. But I mean, more so than just the pocket movement and the physical way that he looked. Emotionally, he just didn't seem invested in the game at the end there. He looked like he was dejected, despite the fact that they were in the red zone of they're in the red zone about to score, and he just looked like, oh, I missed that throw. He wasn't like, oh, we'll get him next time. He was just and then back to the huddle. He was kind of in a monotonous rhythm. He didn't care to finish that game out.
He definitely seems pretty checked out. And you know what? Instead of waiting until we get to the later segment, I will say it here because it doesn't fully involve that. But I think that the Jets just need to leave this era of themselves and this this piece that they're invested in. They need to leave it in the past. Don't trade for Devontae. That's not going to save things. You've still got Aaron Rodgers. Trading for Devontae is going to give up a good asset, a good draft asset for you. You're clearly not winning the Super Bowl or anything this year, probably not even making the playoffs unless things drastically change. And if that's the case, that pick will be in the top half of the second round. It'll be a pretty good pick. You can use it on a young receiver. We've seen good receivers come out in the first half of the second round. That's what you need to do. You don't need to trade for 31-year-old Devontae Adams so that Rodgers can have him for half a year and you can miss the playoffs but make Rodgers happy. What's he done for you to make you keep making him happy? And to kind of compound on that, fucking get rid of Nate Hackett. Just get rid of him. Just say, all right, Aaron, you're clearly not fully invested in this. Nathaniel Hackett is not going to be a good offensive coordinator for literally anybody in the league. He's not even a good offensive coordinator for you. He's just a pushover that you can tell what to do. And that's why you want him around. So we're getting him out of the building, along with Saleh, who they fired this morning. And they need to just throw it all away. Just get rid of it, put it in the past. Jordan Travis is the future. Hope that he's good. If not, draft a quarterback in a year or two. Maybe get Arch Manning or something. Like, just this is not. Their window is closed at the moment. Their window is
Yeah.
showing no signs of opening until they rebuild even more.
Yeah, their window was like, oh, we got Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron Rodgers has not been playing the MVP level of Aaron Rodgers because he went out in 4 snaps and, had an Achilles tear. And a year later, he's rehabbed, he's come back, and he's still not putting the full weight on that foot. And he's playing in an anemic offense that we saw all last year. We thought, oh, this is just because of blank quarterback, because they went through them all. Um, it's a franchise issue. It's Rodgers' issue. It's just all of it compounding at the same time, and it ended in Robert Saleh getting fired, and that shouldn't be the last domino to fall. But for now, it might be.
Yeah, I think for now they can't. Like, you can't cut Rodgers. You just can't.
Yeah.
And if he's on your team, he's got to be starting. And I think Jordan Travis is still rehabbing. I think he's still injured from his leg in college. So I don't think he's your answer this season. But I think definitely next season you look to him and maybe bring in like a third, fourth rounder if there's, a decent looking quarterback that just slips or something. But I think at this point you just got to look towards the future if you're the Jets. I think this season is done.
For the Bills-Texans game, I mean, that was a tight game. Came down to the wire there. But, man, Josh Allen had his career worst completion percentage in a game. Started out 1 for 9 and got absolutely slammed into the ground and returned to the game. And at that point, honestly, like with how his play had been prior, and then the possible concussion stuff that people are talking about, maybe let him sit out more than the 1 rep that he did. Maybe let it be a drive a little bit longer, because you were moving with Josh Allen, quote unquote, like with. So maybe have a little change of pace to see if anything is ignited there outside of the 1 snap. But I also understand if they say he's good, then send him out there. It just really didn't look like he was going to be good, and they really didn't spend a whole lot of time deliberating on it.
Yeah. It was not a good game for him, and the fact that they were still in it at the very end is just a testament to the rest of their team, I guess. I don't even know. Like, I can't even put my finger on it. James Cook was having himself a nice little day rushing the ball, but even that wasn't like, he wasn't carrying the team running. It wasn't like he was getting 250 on the ground, and that's why they were in it. Their defense was doing okay. They were getting good field position and scored enough to have a tie game, and then Ka'imi Fairbairn, 59-yarder.
Yeah, I mean, the Texans only had the ball there because of some poor decision making on terms of, going for it with just, they ran 4 verts 3 times in a row, and we're like, geez, how come that didn't work?
Yeah.
After they had a, horrible completion percentage throughout the game. It's in that situation, it's hard to be like, oh, just kneel, because they were so backed up. It's hard to say, oh, well, they'll run the ball because they have all their timeouts, and if you don't pick up a first down, you're still punting the ball to them. But I feel like you go a little more high percentage throw than I'm going to throw with very little time left. We have no timeouts, which means they know exactly where I'm going to throw to, because we're trying to drive down the field.
Speaking of overtime games, we get to our game of the week. What a prediction from us. Ravens, Bengals. Mm-hmm. It had every bit of rivalry game in it. Full offense, next to no defense. It was great. And I was lucky enough to be watching I think it was the Bills-Texans game that I was watching, and that ended early enough because it didn't go to overtime that I was able to watch the overtime. And it was great. And I saw the clip of Lamar fumbling the snap earlier in the game, where he picked it up, ran backwards, and then just launched it to Isaiah Likely for a touchdown.
Yeah.
And that was like a career play for him. That was really cool to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The game as a whole, because you only saw overtime, was that it?
I saw
the
highlights in the game breaks. So when Jamar Chase had his little wide receiver screen that he took to the house, and I was like, okay, so I've lost in fantasy now. I saw that, and I was like, but
yeah. The the game, I was listening to it on my drive home, and you know, they go down and they score, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stop late. Okay, cool. And then Jamar Chase, huge touchdown run, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, so this is gonna be a back and forth ending here, and right towards the end, there was the little stumbles, and then in overtime, there was more stumbles of a fumble in overtime, which then you're like, oh, it's all done. It's over. The Bengals are going to win. And then a fumbled hold on the kick. And then it's like, oh, okay, it's not over. It's going to go to the Ravens here. Let's see how this ends. And of course, you best kicker. And he's going to make it when Derrick Henry runs the ball down to the 1 yard line. So it was just an electric game. When the defense showed up, it wasn't like a boring, 3 and out, 3 and out. It was exciting plays. It was fumbles, and it was these like issues that were coming up late in the game after the huge stress of this big explosive game. And that's a game of the week. That's the best game of the week pick we've had.
That may be
so
game
far.
of the year. Like that, it wouldn't shock
Yeah.
me if we're looking back at that and like that's the best game of this year. That's probably the best game of the past 2 or 3 seasons. Like that one, down to the wire. Both teams possessed it in overtime, and that's something you don't see too often with the regular season overtime rules. Is both teams possessing it. So that was kind of cool to see. But yeah, that was just an insane game. And now I've got this to do.
Yeah, you got some negativity to dump right
Yeah.
now.
All right. Let me monologue real quick. All right. So last week I had a little portion. We had a little portion where we talked about Deshaun Watson and how we don't want him to play anymore. And that's been kind of the case with us for a while now. We don't want him to be the starting quarterback. We think he sucks and is a bad person. And we posted, that was a combined effort, I suppose. A clip of that.
I'm part of this too, damn it.
We posted a clip of that on TikTok and got a couple comments from people saying, clearly you guys don't watch the games. Deshaun isn't the problem. It's the offensive line and the weapons. The weapons can't catch. Amari Cooper has the highest drop percentage in the league, and the offensive line can't block for shit. So I did watch this Browns game, unfortunately. I really wish I didn't. Because Deshaun Watson looked like a hot pile of steaming garbage. Bench him. He sucks.
On the bright side, you got to watch Jaden Daniels.
I did get to watch Jaden Daniels. That was it.
There's a positive side to every coin there.
Yeah.
And, yes, he should be benched. Do I think that, people were coping very hard? Yes, I do. Do you think that maybe drop percentage is at all correlated to ball placement of a quarterback? Of course not. Why would that ever be a thing? What are you talking about?
I also think that another part of it is, I think it was Emmanuel Acho. He posted on Twitter and he was like, there's no way his receivers like him, or his receivers have to hate him because they were just like, it was the Jerry Jeudy in the end zone clip. Which, number one, there was a reason Jerry Jeudy got cut from the Broncos or traded from the Broncos. It's because he couldn't f***ing catch. So I don't know why you're shocked when he has a drop. But yeah, I don't know if you've seen both of these things that I'm about to reference, but I don't know if it was a post-game interview or just a regular interview, when he was asked if the coaching staff would ask him to run the ball, like be a more mobile quarterback and like have some designed runs, if he would do it. He was like, no, I came here to play quarterback. I'm not here to run the ball. And that's not the right answer. The right answer is if it will help us win the game, yeah, I'll do it. That's the correct answer. Right. PR training, Deshaun. I know you're not good at it, but you got to at least try. And then the second thing was when Stefanski wanted to go for it and Deshaun walked off the field. And I've seen two sides of this. One side is my side where it's like, no, if your coach tells you to go for it, you go for it. The other thing is they had 12 men in the huddle. Okay, send one of them to the sideline. It's not like that's an outrageous thing. It's just like, oh, we've got 12. Okay, well, we've got 5 receivers out here. Get one of them out of here. Like, just figure it out and run a damn play. If your coach says go for it on 4th down, you go for it on 4th down. And so, yeah, if there's a quarterback, right, on the roster And he is so vocally checked out of everything the team has going on, as Deshaun is. And there's another quarterback on the roster, Jameis Winston, who you wouldn't be shocked if you saw him die on the field for his team. I think I'd rather play for the guy that would die on the field for his team. You know, like I feel like I'd want him playing more than. So.
Yeah, I mean,
have to bleep that one.
Like, yeah, I'm gonna be honest here. In one, I think it was Jason Garrett. They were recapping the game. It was Sunday Night Football, and they were rain delayed, so they were recapping games. And I heard Jason Garrett refer to Deshaun Watson, and he said, "Oh, you know, his past off the field issues." And I hate that term specifically for Deshaun Watson because it's not an off the field issue. It's not something that you could chalk up to being like a mistake. You know, it's not a DUI.
Hold on. Was it an issue? Is it an issue? Did it happen on the field?
It's a big issue.
It's an off the field issue. That's
yeah.
it. Carry on.
At least be like legal issue. You know, legally, I feel like off the field issue is a little too broad to really dampen what happened with Deshaun and that whole situation.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's PR training, and like you can't talk that negatively about somebody in the NFL, and you shouldn't as a, you know.
Yeah, but you know,
no,
they should.
I agree.
It's Deshaun Watson.
They should for sure.
And then getting back to the whole 12-man in the huddle thing, I think Deshaun was actually like he's taking one for the team. He understands that he's the biggest issue on that offense. So if they have 11 players on the field, they're better off without him. So he was actually just trying to he was like, oh, we'll really make this fourth down conversion if I just take myself out of this play. Go for it, coach. I'm going to step off. And I think that's might have been what Stefanski had in mind too, sending 12 people on the field. He's like, all right, let's really get this game going. Let's get Deshaun out of here. And it was played up for the cameras, you know. They both know what they're doing.
Of course, yeah. They're professionals. They know what they're doing. And that just about covers up the game-by-game recap we have. We were going to talk about Robert Saleh getting fired, but we kind of already covered that when we were talking about the Jets. But more AFC East news. Drake May is starting this week. So if you're going to start Drake May, you have to have known for at least a couple of weeks that this was coming. So why not start him against a depleted Dolphins defense at home rather than a top defense in the Texans and a top offense in the Texans? You're not going to win that game. You're just not. Unless Drake May comes out here and plays like prime Brady and Jalen Polk turns into Justin Jefferson. Like if that happens, sure we can win. If our offensive line learns how to block overnight, yeah, we'll have a great time. But this is not a team that we can beat. The Texans are not a team that the Patriots can beat, no matter what. So why are we starting out a quarterback with a loss, effectively, and ruining another quarterback's development? Like maybe this doesn't affect him very much. Maybe a loss in his first start doesn't affect him that much. But you just got to think that this is not a great game for him to be starting when the week before they played a terrible team in the Dolphins who, without Tua and without some starters on defense, are a terrible team. They're horrible to watch. And the week after, we play a Jaguars team that hasn't been able to get anything going. Why is this the game he's starting? Like, why pick the toughest matchup for him to give us the best chance of winning? But no, tank. Get a starting left tackle for him so that he doesn't die next year.
Yeah, but it's an odd timing for sure. And, you know, you make great point with the fact that he could have started last week. And maybe it's like, oh, well, Brissett's played this week is what really set us over the edge. It still feels like there wasn't a concrete plan of, oh, we're going to start him now. Or here's what we want to see before we start him. Or here's what we don't want to see from Jacoby Brissett, which makes us start him. And it feels like there was none of that. It feels like it was like, well, we saw Jacoby Brissett, you know, lose us another game. So I'm tired of him. And let's just go to the young guy. It feels half-assed as opposed to what we've kind of been hearing of like, oh yeah, we're going to sit him and he's going to get his time to develop that he was saying he wanted as a draft prospect. It's Drake May, we're seeing him for the first time. I don't imagine he's going to come out that electric. No. I imagine it's going to be that learning curve and this is just going to be a loss on the year.
Yeah, I guess it's not a guaranteed loss. It's not. I'm cynical about the Patriots this year if it's not evident enough. they're my team, they're my boys. I hope they win every game, but they're just not going to. So it's better for me to be cynical about them and then be happy with a win than it is for me to expect greatness in year one of the truly year one of the rebuild. And so that's just my expectations of them. But Texans team missing Nico Collins is pretty big for them. Their offense may stutter a little bit, but I just don't think their defense is bad enough for our weak offensive line and weak playmakers to overcome.
Yep, and on to our weekly segment this week. It's going to be the coaching hot seat temp check. So we're going to be going through, we got a long list. We had a slightly longer list before Bob Saleh got fired this morning, but we're going to be going through a pretty long list, and we're going to be grading them on a scale of like burning hot, get them off the coaching staff, to they're pretty safe. We agree with them still being on the team, moving forward despite whatever issues may have brought them onto our list today. So we're going to kick this off with the 1-4 Dave Canales led Panthers. This one we were both pretty high on, I think, coming into the year. Bryce Young's bench, they moved on to Andy Dalton. Dalton's 1-1. Where do you feel that they are landing on this scale here?
Yeah, so for those of you that I can't obviously tell, there's a scale above us. There's 5 different colors. Red is the seat is burning hot. It's melting almost. That's where Robert Saleh would have been the second he walked into the building this morning. I think that if he hadn't gotten fired, I probably would have put him somewhere around the middle, where it's like, yeah, he's not doing great, but I don't know. Jets defense is always all right, and he's a defensive coach. So, anywho, I would put him somewhere around this like second tier orange range, because in my opinion of him, he was the quarterback whisperer. That's why he got so popular so fast. He resurrected Geno Smith's career. He then resurrected Baker Mayfield's career. They brought him in to resurrect Bryce Young's career. Bryce Young only had the one bad year, but their offensive line has played great, and Bryce Young did not. So I think he's on a bit of a hotter seat than we would have thought, just because I think the reason that he was brought in is something that he has not succeeded in doing, which is to save Bryce Young. So I think if they have another season where they're like top 5 in draft order, I think he may be on the way out, just because it's like, okay, well, you clearly didn't help with Bryce Young, so go be an offensive coordinator somewhere else, go save somebody else's career.
Yeah, I feel that it's hard to say, because it's so hard to know what he came in with, as I kind of spoke on when he benched Bryce Young. Did they come in with an understanding with ownership of, you're going to make Bryce Young our guy? Or did it come in with a, hey, you win however you need to win, and we'll make sure that you get your guy at quarterback, whether it's Bryce Young, Andy Dalton, or whoever. So I'm feeling more of that like lukewarm middle yellow section here, because I just don't know where they are at that. Because, I mean, right now, he could be on the red hot, because how long did it take them to fire Frank Reich? That was like 6 games, 5 weeks. Like, it could be another situation of that, of, oh, he's going to lose next week and he's out of the building. But I feel like with his decision to go to Andy Dalton so quickly in the year, that it feels like he had support from ownership to do that. And it was less of like, oh, Frank Reich is spoiling away our first overall pick, so he's got to leave. This doesn't feel like he's spoiling away Bryce Young, we need him out of here. It feels like there might be a little more like faith behind Canales and what he can do for the team in the long run.
I guess for me, it's just like, it's between red hot and like lukewarm. Like, I don't think he's any safer than lukewarm right now, because they're 1-4. They suck. And he was brought in as this savior of the Panthers, and he just hasn't done it so far. So that's kind of why I'm leaning that orange tier. We can kind of go in the middle. It doesn't have to be like only 5 sections. We can kind of lean one side or the other if you want. So
yeah, temperature gauges do not go in 5 sections. So I think we can definitely kind of place him on the scale right between those two. He's definitely not fully lukewarm, though. There's definitely some danger there. Yeah,
and I think that I also wonder if the hurried switch to Andy Dalton is like, okay, they said I had to win 3 games by midseason or I'm out of here. Let me just try to get something. And so there's just so much that's unknown to us. But what we do know is that the Panthers are not good, and that they've had improved. Their team has improved, but not at the quarterback position, which is Dave Canales' specialty. He was a QB coach, then an offensive coordinator, and now a head coach.
Yeah, and as we're kind of talking about, we don't know the situation that well. If you're a Panthers fan, get in the comments, let us know the situation, and we'll go ahead and we'll reply with a more refined opinion on where he should land. But right now, we're not in the weeds of the Panthers reporting rooms particularly. But you want to lead us off into this next one?
Yeah, we got Zach Taylor here with the 1-4 Bengals. Again, we're not in the buildings. It's hard to say if he's on the hot seat or not, but he's an offensive head coach. Their offense is cooking. So I don't think he's on a hot seat at all. I think their defensive coordinator probably is. I think he's probably on his way out the building right now, but that's just, I think he's in this like light green tier. I don't know if anybody on this list is in the solid green. I don't know if I'd put anybody there, save maybe like one or two names. But I think he's definitely in that like second tier of being all right. Like, I don't think he's gone. Not from this.
Yeah. I think, I'll agree with your light green. I'm feeling that if anyone was going to be solid green on this, fully safe, it would be Zach Taylor. He always starts off very poorly. And so, there exists a time that he will go ahead and he'll win out the rest of the year, and they're going to be first seed. So that is a future that could exist because of the team that he has. But I agree with you in that light green because it's been a trend with him that they haven't gotten over the hump. So they don't get over a hump again, and maybe they look to make a change because maybe they want someone who actually starts the year off fast at winning.
Yeah. Then do you want to kick us off into this next one, Doug Peterson of the 1-4 Jags?
I will, because, we did a 3-part miniseries that basically is the Doug Peterson Jags era. It was the end of the previous era. We won't mention names. And then the start of this one. And there's been very much ups and downs for the Doug Peterson era in Jacksonville. And this is a down part of that. They were 0-4. They're 1-4 now. They got their win. And I feel most that with the talent that's been on the team, with the money invested in the team itself, Doug Peterson's more likely to go than any other player. It's not going to be a Canales situation. You're not going to be able to bench somebody because the team's playing badly. They're all too heavily invested in. So it's going to be Doug Peterson. So I'm going to be leaning with this one in orange to red because it's looked very bleak for them, and it feels primarily play calling focused. Not purely play calling, but coaching overall, as the team has struggled year after year and gone on little hot streaks, but never sustained anything consistency for the year.
Yeah. I think he was let go from the Eagles for a reason. I've got him in the red, like far in the red. Like, I think he may be fired next week. I think that's a possibility that they may see, oh, the Jets got rid of their guy already. All right, our turn. And they kick him out the building. I think if they lose this week, it's a real possibility. I think if they go, 1-5 to start the year, I think that's a real thing that could happen. But I'm definitely leaning far left side of this graph. Red hot, burning up. He's in hell right now.
He is in Florida, but you want to go ahead and kick us off with this?
Are we going to agree on a spot for him?
I have him orange to red. You want him very red? We'll put him in red. That's the comp. Yep.
And then this I think is the guy that I think is safest on this list. The 1-4 Rams with Sean McVay. This is just a rough, injury-ridden start. Also sans Aaron Donald, because of retirement. Mm-hmm. So I don't think he's on the hot seat at all. I think he's as far in the green as you can get.
Yep. He's the reverse Doug Peterson, for sure. He's where you had him before, way over there. Just flip him.
Sean McVay is going to leave the Rams when he retires. I don't think he leaves any sooner because before injuries, the Rams offense was kind of cooking. And even with injuries, they've kind of stayed in these games that they definitely, I don't think they expected to stay in.
Yeah.
So,
Especially against teams that are way more healthy at very crucial positions than they are.
yeah. All right. Next one is Gerard Mayo, 1-4 Patriots. Obviously, my team. I want to hear what you have to say, and then I'll give my thoughts on the matter.
I mean, speaking on the whole lack of a concrete plan around the Drake May situation, at least how I perceive the Drake May situation, I don't think it's a push because, there's not ownership belief in Gerard Mayo. It feels like this was the succession plan for, the past couple of years during Belichick's era. So I doubt you pull the plug on that 7 weeks into the next era. So I feel like he's probably that light green to yellow area. It really depends on the next few weeks of Drake May on if I would even consider moving him down into like lukewarm. To me, it's year one of the rebuild. He's going to be in light green. I understand that they have a bad record, but this was expected.
Yeah, I'm definitely leaning more into the yellow lukewarm tier, like the straight up the middle, than I am in like the light green, because it is year one of the rebuild and it is year one of a new head coach, and there was a succession plan, which is why I think that he is not on the hot seat. However, their defense has not looked the same as it did with Belichick. So clearly he is not Belichick, and the hope was that he could at least keep the defense afloat, and he hasn't even really been able to do that super well. It obviously sucks that I think they used one draft pick this past year on a defensive player. So they didn't add too much to the defense, and they've had some injuries kind of roaming around in there. So it's kind of tough to say that he's on the hot seat at all because of the succession plan and because obviously it's a big rebuild. So I don't think he gets fired this year, but I do think that he is more on a hot seat than a safe space, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the being safe versus and lightly safe, I guess, would be the light green. But yeah, I can understand that perspective that he's closer to being fired than he is to getting an extension.
Yeah.
If he was
Once
up
we
for
see
extension
success,
at
I
the
think he'll
end
get
of the
an
year,
extension. But
yeah, I'll agree
yeah,
with that lukewarm pick then.
yeah. Then do you do you want to lead us into
I made a face at it because boy oh boy,
the Mayo Bowl? Well, from one
I'll
Mayo
lead
to
us.
another.
I'll go ahead and I'll lead us off into the Mayo, transition here into the Brian Callahan led Titans, sitting at 1-3. They had their bye week this week, so that's why they're not 1-4. I presume they'd be 1-4 if they didn't have a bye week. Yeah, this one I don't think is on the hot seat. I think this is lukewarm. It really just depends because Brian Callahan brought over Bill Callahan, his father, to coach the offensive line. This is a team that's rebuilding. They kind of really blew it up, letting Derrick Henry walk, letting Vrabel go, and the different things that they did this offseason to completely restructure the team as best they could. If this doesn't work this year, I don't think they're like, oh, clearly it's Brian Callahan's fault. I think they're like, okay, we still have some building to go for this to be Callahan's team. And you think, they're going to fire him and his dad's going to stick around? I wouldn't. So I imagine if you give him the boot, you're booting your offensive line coach as well. And I feel like that's a little too much to do in year one after completely decimating the roster. So I've got him in the yellow. He's lukewarm for me as well. He's closer to being fired than if he were to be up for extension at the end of the year. But also, there's so much building to do with this team.
Yeah, I think I've got him yellow bordering on light green. I don't think he's at risk at all. I think Will Levis is very much at risk, if anything. I mean, year one win came against a very depleted Dolphins team, and you've got 4 games and 4 weeks of hilarious pictures of your quarterback making mistakes. So I don't think it's entirely Brian Callahan's fault. Obviously, Callahan is not happy with how Levis has been kind of
Yeah.
careless with the ball. And so I think they're closer to drafting a quarterback this year than they are getting a new head coach,
letting
if
a
that
coach
makes
go.
sense.
Yeah.
I think that what they've done and how they've acted is definitely more of build the team up around Levis and see what we've got here. And they see what they've got and they're not happy with it because they brought in some older veteran proven receivers in Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins. They brought in Tony Pollard, who's a decent running back, probably better than anybody on the Cowboys roster right now. And their defense is doing all right. They brought in L'Jarius Sneed. Their offensive line is what they keep working on in the draft. So they're clearly building up the other parts of their roster. And I think if Levis isn't the answer, which I don't know if he is anymore. I think leading into this season, we were both a little bit like, oh, he could do it, but not anymore.
Yeah. I was expecting a jump with the Brian Callahan, not a regression.
Yeah.
But, you know, do you feel on agreeing on lukewarm or kind of pushing it just a little closer to that light green?
I think pushing it a little closer to the light green, putting it somewhere in the middle of those two.
Yeah. Yeah. You would hope that the new GM and him are on the same page here and it's not going to be, you know, kicking them out of the building immediately.
Yeah.
Then we have, boy, oh boy, our favorite team to talk about up next. You lead us off here.
Yeah, the 1-4 Kevin Stefanski, Deshaun Massage Watson led Browns. I think that he is tied to Deshaun, so I don't know. I feel like this entire, like the ownership, the GM, Kevin Stefanski, they're all tied to the Deshaun trade, and they all approved it, and they all were like, yes, let's do it, and it so clearly has not worked. I think they are closer to blowing everything up, eating the dead cap, getting rid of their owner, getting rid of their GM, getting rid of Stefanski, and blowing everything up than they are to keeping everybody around. I think that he could save himself by saying, I was wrong about the Deshaun trade. We're starting Jameis Winston. But he doubled down and said Deshaun is our quarterback this past week. So I think that he is as tied to Deshaun's future as anybody. And so I think he's probably in that nice orange to red area of a hot seat, despite, you know, being a Coach of the Year winner a couple years back.
Yeah, I will perfectly agree with that. I think the Coach of the Year winning, you know, that was more of like, that's a good thing to have on your resume when you're looking for a job after the Browns. But right now, the Browns do not care that he won Coach of the Year a few years ago. They are noticing that their freaking highest paid player on their team, who's fully guaranteed that they are stuck with, is playing like dog shit. So when you can't get rid of the player because he's guaranteed money, so if you get rid of him, what the hell are we even doing here? You got to make changes around it. And do I think Stefanski would have been in this situation with anybody? With Baker Mayfield, is Stefanski in this situation?
Hell no.
No. Like, it's simply his agreeance on the move to get Deshaun Watson that is putting him in danger right now. And hell, freaking, he's going to just suffer the consequences of that trade happening. And I agree with his placement by you.
Yeah. Now we get into, I would kind of like to speed run these last few.
Yeah. No, I think these last ones are a lot less like talking. We can make a quick decision on these. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we've got, those were all of our 1-win teams that we're going to go over. Now it's into like the kind of question mark coaches where we're like, are they doing things? Are they not? Who knows? Nick Sirianni's the first guy. It's come out a lot in recent years that he is not exactly doing anything, I think is the right word. He's not leading the team. He's not talking to the players. The players lead the team and talk to each other. He's not calling plays. That's the offensive coordinator. He's not calling defensive plays. That's the defensive coordinator. I don't even know if the dude's game planning. Like I think he's the scapegoat for. Yeah, I think he's the scapegoat for if they have another if they continue this subpar season. I think that he's going to be the scapegoat and he's gone. So I think he's probably sitting in like the lukewarm to orange tier just because the Eagles aren't so bad, but he's just not doing shit.
Yeah. I think that the team is a little disjointed and you would look to the head coach to put that together. And so if I like the coordinators they got, so if it's an instance of like firing him and elevating a coordinator, that'd be a good look. But I don't imagine they fire him and the coordinators stick around as a new head coach comes over him, because a new head coach wants their own guys. So you look at this and you're gonna kind of blow it up. I'd kind of stick him in the lukewarm, because you would really have to suffer for the rest of the year to justify firing the entire coaching staff and putting in a new regime.
Well, I think that if they do fire Sirianni, I think it's much closer to just like, hey, which coordinator is more cohesive with the team? All right, you're the new head coach. Keep the other coordinator and hire an underling, or like it's much more of like get rid of the top and promote from within than it is get rid of the top, outside hire, you know. So
Yeah, I'm more so considering like at the end of the year when it's not an interim head coach position anymore, and they open up the hiring and that whole debacle that goes down, that they end up going with somebody else. It'd be a whole more of a debacle if they do bad. I think that he would stay in that lukewarm area because it's something that they want to see a year more of him. Less so that he's gonna be like really doing a good job. It's just gonna be like, all right, well, let's see anything more because we like our coordinators, kind of thing.
yeah. Next up, Mike McCarthy of the Cowboys. He was on a hot seat last year, and they have not looked great to start this year. I don't like him as a coach. I think they should have fired him and gotten Belichick. And if they could have done that, great move. I mean, I guess if Belichick was like, no, I'd like to do some media appearances for a year and see how that goes before I accept any head coaching positions, then they were like, well, shit, I guess we're sticking with McCarthy another year. But I definitely think he's in the orange, I think is where I'd put him.
Yeah, sitting him in the orange is a great spot for him. He got a scapegoat. Like, he's had scapegoats already. He's fired coaches to replace them, and they haven't gotten over the hump. And Jerry is probably sick and fed up with it, because Jerry's on his way out too, and he probably wants to see another Cowboys Super Bowl so he can die a happy man.
He won't.
So I imagine Mike McCarthy is gonna be, leaving the building sooner than later. So orange is a good spot for him. It's not going to be immediate where it should be red, but I think orange is a good spot. And then next up we have Matt Eberflus. The Browns. Sorry, the Bears. They have a winning record. Like, this isn't an absolutely atrocious start to the year for them in the record department. They just haven't looked great, but they're still winning games. So I'd be sitting him in that light green tier, because Caleb Williams is getting better, and it's looking better for him as weeks go on. But yeah, you look at him in the first 2 weeks and there'd be some question marks.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that the team is getting better as Caleb's getting better, and the defense has looked good all year. So I don't see any reason that he should be any lower than light green, and maybe even put him in the dark green as the year goes on, and as the Bears kind of show us more of what they're about. I think we'll see a bigger picture of this, but I definitely think light green for now.
And then on to Brian Daboll, our last one, the Giants head coach. He's a little screwed being tied to Danny Dimes. He had him have a great year one, and then they were like, okay, cool, we'll keep you all paired together. And Danny Dimes has not looked that good since. So do I feel that Daboll is more likely to leave than Dimes? No. This one is kind of difficult, because yes, the team has a horrible roster. They've had a horrible roster, and they haven't improved the roster that much year to year to year. So I feel like it's more likely to replace GM, replace head coach, and replace quarterback than it is to fire one quarterback or, the head coach. So for me, I'm kind of feeling that he's in a danger zone if those are the options. If someone's going to get canned at the end of the year, you're not going to be in the light green. You're not going to be in lukewarm. I've got him in orange.
Wow. I think this is the first one that we genuinely disagree on, because I don't think he's in orange at all. I don't think he's in danger. I think that he is winning the game. Like, he is winning games with Daniel freaking Jones as his quarterback. I think that is a much more impressive feat than anything. And not just that. Daniel Jones as his quarterback, Devin Singletary as his RB1, and Wan'Dale Robinson as his wide receiver 1 this past week and wide receiver 2 every other week. Like, this is not a good team, and he's pulling out wins. And the pieces that have been put around, like, that they've taken, it was Evan Neal, who sucks. It was Kayvon Thibodeau, who's okay, but definitely not like a top 5 pick, which is where he was taken. And
Mm-hmm.
it was Malik Neighbors, who's been a smash hit home run so far. So
Mm-hmm.
I think he is safe. I think he's fine. I think he's at least got another year. I don't think they get rid of him this year, which is what I would consider a hot seat. So I don't think his seat is hot at all.
Okay. Yeah, I have a more view of it of, you know, owner, president, everybody is probably fed up with the talent level of the team. Talent level is tied to the GM, and if they bring in a new GM, the GM might bring in their own guy for head coach. So, with all of these pieces kind of being really interwoven together, I would feel that a clean sweep is more likely than just cutting Danny Dimes. So that'd be my reasoning. But also, I love Brian Dable. I think he doesn't deserve that. So I'll move him up to match like where you put him. I'm kind of feeling that yellow range for the top end of where I'd have him, just because of the organization as a whole, not so much of what Dable has done to be in that spot.
Yeah, I think I'm just ranking him on what Dable has done. So if we're
Mm-hmm.
taking everything else into account, then yeah, maybe not a great look. But I think at the moment he's winning games with awful weapons. So I don't think you can ask much more of him. And I would hope that a new GM may see that and say, you know what, this guy is winning games with bad players. I think I can do a better job bringing in good players. I'd like to see what he can do with good players. And so I'd
Mm-hmm.
I'd kind of hope that that's what happens. But yeah, we'll leave him in the kind of yellow lukewarm tier, and that just about wraps up the coaching seat temp check. So let us know what your thoughts down in the comments below. Let us know who we did not talk about that you would like our thoughts on, and we'll respond to it. And then let us know who we're just dead wrong about. If you completely disagree, if you think McVay is getting cut tomorrow, then definitely say that in the comments, please. Make my day.
Yes.
All right. So last week I put off selling my Chargers stocks because they were going into a bye week, and I just didn't want the money to be able to be spent by me because I didn't trust myself with it. So I will be going ahead and selling both of my Chargers stocks here. So that puts an extra $1,000 in my bank account and brings me up to $1,125. They have a game against the Broncos coming up, which is kind of a toss up for me, and I just don't. I think they're worth more than they were when I bought them, and I'm gonna get out of there while I've got a profit. And in the meantime, I was last week I was thinking about picking up the Cardinals. Unfortunately, they won their game, so.
Mm-hmm. Went up in some value there.
But the 49ers are coming off a loss, and they're heading into another kind of tough game against the Seahawks. It's a divisional game, but I'm going to go ahead and pick up another share of the 49ers stock, which is going to put their net worth at 800 now since I've got two of them. And it'll put my bank down to 725. Yeah,
Yep, that's good math. All
be my
right.
little $400 shell.
Yeah, so we do a snake format basically with transactions. So he went ahead, he did his sell, he did his buy, and I'm gonna go ahead and I think first off I'm gonna start off with a sell as well. I do have 500 in my bank, but I'm not gonna get to that immediately. Um, I am gonna go ahead and sell my Falcons. I think one share of my Falcons each is worth 600 at the moment. I had bought in for them at 425, so I'm going to make a little bit of profit on that. Go ahead and raise my bank account itself to 1,100 and drop the net worth of my Falcon stock by half, and that kind of makes me end up sitting around 1,100 in the bank and one less Falcons. And then with my buy, I'm thinking that I see a team here. I see a couple of teams here that I really do believe in, kind of hanging around the bottom of the pack right now. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to buy two of the Bengals stocks. We talked about it during the video. They start slow, and that was an electric game from them. A great time to buy in right now as they're sitting at 1-4 still, despite showing the the best game so far. So right now I bought in 2 Bengals stocks. That's going to cost me 400, and that's going to drop my bank from 1100 down to 700.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm still stuck to my Bengals stocks that I bought at the beginning of the year for 550 a piece. They're now worth 200 a piece. But I'm just hoping that they turn their season around as they always seem to do. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sell my Jag stock. I bought it last week at $100. They won a close game, so I am not considering that a day trade. Do you have any protests to me selling the Jag stock right now?
I do not, because they won, yes, but they didn't look convincing enough during that win. If they lost, it's not like you were going to sell. And if they won the next game, if they ever won convincingly, you would probably hold on to them for a little bit longer. But they still haven't shown much, so
Yeah.
I don't protest that.
Just as a refresher to the people, day trading is frowned upon, but not outright banned, I guess.
Banned.
Basically, what it is buying a stock, team wins, sell the stock. But if it's frowned upon if it's like I buy the Ravens stock before they play the Panthers, they win, and I sell it after a 1 week gain. Like that's kind of like, all right, bud, like what are we really doing here? But
Yeah.
when it's a team that I purchased them, they had a close game against the Colts where they won because the Colts were a little banged up. I don't know if I trust them against the Bears. It's about an even matchup, I think, where I think they could win just as much as I thought they might win against the Colts. But I think that for now, I've got my 249ers stocks. I think I'm going to let everything sit another week. The other stocks that I'm looking at are the Rams, because everybody's starting to, or will be starting to get healthier. I think they're getting Cooper Kupp back after this bye week, but they're on bye. So they are going to be just as expensive right now as they are next week. And in a week, I'll either know more about their injuries or I'll have a little bit more money to play with, depending on what happens this week. But whatever happens, I think I am sitting here with 1 Bear stock, 2 Bengals stocks, 2 49ers stocks, and 1 Ravens stock with an additional $1,125 in the bank account.
Yep. And now onto my transactions. As you've wrapped up yours, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna sell my Jaguar stock. It's a team that they won. We weren't guaranteed that they were going to win, but they're really hard to root for moving forward. And so they have, so many games in succession that I'm not certain they will, have a chance at, despite, next week being a kind of even matchup with the Bears. You look further than that, and I'm not getting a whole lot of confidence there. So, I just spent 400 on buying some Bengals. I'm now gaining 400 from selling my Jaguars and putting that 1100 back into my bank account. However, I am not going to buy the Rams for the same reason you aren't. And I think that there's a couple of teams here that, I do have belief in, but they're all a little pricey for me right now. And I'd like to see, maybe a loss pile up before I go ahead and buy on them. So I'm going to let that sit for another week. But I will end my my stock moves there as well. And then if you want to get straight into pick'ems, I'm ready for that as well.
Yeah, so let's head to pick'ems. We did not discuss at all during the pick'em segment how ChatGPT did in the first episode that it appeared in. But we'll get to that now. It went 8-6, so a little bit better than it did the week before, and it picked the wrong team in some pretty close games. So I don't hold that one against it. We've gotten its picks for this week. They'll be right up in the same top corner. And this week we have selected the game of the week and the shit show of the week before we record. So we've got the stamps ready to go. We'll stamp it up there whenever we get to that game. But we will kick things off on Thursday night. 49ers heading into Seattle to play the Seahawks, divisional opponents, coming off tough losses for both teams, tough close losses. And I think that the 49ers will take this one over the Seahawks. I think they are the better team, and the the parts of their team that did not do well last week, which is Deebo Samuel not getting super involved, and then the defense kind of letting up some big QB runs. I don't think the Seahawks are as good running the ball with their quarterback. Geno ran for a little bit last week, but he's not Kyler Murray, and Deebo is only getting healthier, so I think they're in for a little bit of a bounce back after a close loss to a tough team.
Yeah, I think that the Seahawks are also very much got that bad taste in their mouth, losing to the team that they lost to in the way that they lost. And they're playing at home, so they got the 12 to support them. But the 49ers, they travel well. They won the NFC champion. They were in the Super Bowl last year for a reason. I've got the 49ers winning this one as well. And then on to the Bears-Jags. We spoke on the Jags a good amount this episode, and I'm going to be picking the Bears here because of all the issues we've brought up with the Jags and the fact that the Bears are gaining some steam as some development between Caleb Williams and his wide receivers kind of blossoms.
Yep, I don't know what it's going to take for the Jaguars to gain my confidence back, but I am agreeing with you there. Bears over Jags. Until something big changes in Jacksonville, I don't know if I'll have very much confidence in them, whether that's firing Doug Peterson, whether that's getting a new offensive coordinator, whether that's, something happening where we're like, oh, so that's the problem. Until we figure that out, got nothing. And then we get into the Commanders at the Ravens. Stamp it up there. Game of the week here at Franchise Tagged. We've got Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, two of the better rushing and passing threats in the league today, which is crazy to say with Jaden Daniels entering his sixth game. But hey, it's the truth. And I have the Ravens in this one. I think the Commanders are doing extremely well this season, but I think the Ravens are a juggernaut of the AFC. So I don't think that they will be taken down by a team that is on a roll, but also has some defensive question marks. I am more confident in the Ravens' abilities than I am in the Commanders.
Yeah, it's real tight for me because I doubt both of these defenses, and at the end of the day, I think it stacks up to the offensive line play. The Ravens I have much more faith in than the Commanders, and that's kind of where the line's going to be drawn for me because, yes, both these quarterbacks are mobile. They can escape that kind of pressure. But you can only be under pressure so many plays in a row before some bad play happens, whether it be a sack or just enough incompletions. So I'm going to be leaning the Ravens here with you, agreeing on that. And then in the next lineup, we got the Cardinals at the Packers. This one, we just saw the Cardinals make a big comeback win. Down big, and then the Packers they lost, they won, but it almost felt like a loss with the team they played and the plays they made. So I think that the Cardinals are riding a little bit hotter right now than the Packers are, and I have no doubt that the Packers will play better than they did last week, but I also think they're playing a much more healthy and much better team than they played last week. So I'm going to actually end up going with the Cardinals on this one.
All right, I'm going to disagree with you here. I'm taking the Packers. I think they're ultimately the better team, and they were down one of their top two, or actually two of their top three pass catchers in Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. Mm-hmm. Doubs is back in the building. He's, they've had progressive conversations on both sides, so I think he'll probably play this week, and that'll be big for Jordan Love. Dontavion Wicks was kind of hyped up to be this, ultimate guy for the Packers, and he just dropped a lot of passes. He got open a lot but couldn't bring it in. I think Dobbs is going to ultimately be better, and the Cardinals squeaked out a close one against the 49ers, and that's really impressive, but unfortunately they continued my streak of never being able to guess a Cardinals game correctly. So we actually disagree on a Cardinals game. I think that you still have not predicted one correctly
broke
too.
The Matrix.
So it's going to be a tie, is what I'm saying. But yeah, one of us will likely break that streak. I'm going to go with Packers over Cardinals here. I just have a little bit more faith in the Packers than I do in the wishy-washy Cardinals. Then we get into the Texans heading to New England to play Drake May and the Patriots. I've got the Texans in this one pretty handedly. Shout out Drake May. Hope he does great things, and I hope they win this, but I just don't believe it.
Yeah, I'm going to be matching that Texans pick here. Although I will say that, to me, Drake May, he closes that gap a lot. I bet the betting spread has definitely lessened for this game, but Texans are the easy pick here. And then leading into the next one, Buccaneers at Saints. This one is, again, another easy pick for the Buccaneers. The Bucs continue to play really well. They ended up losing Thursday Night Football, but they looked really good throughout. And, I think Thursday Night Football last week was probably one of the best Thursday Night Footballs this year. So the Buccaneers riding that high versus the Saints, who are going to be without Derek Carr after his injury sustained. They didn't look great last week, and I don't imagine they're going to look great with their backup in either. I'm going to be taking the Bucs.
Yeah. So I'm also going to be taking the Buccaneers over the Saints, and this is going to be my lock of the week. Again, Saints down Derek Carr. I think the Bucs got this one. Something else that I just realized, I broke the rules. I locked the Seahawks last week. I had locked them in week 1 over the Broncos.
Ooh,
I didn't realize I did that.
He didn't do his homework. You didn't double check.
I didn't double check. I went to double check the Buccaneers, and I saw that I had locked the Seahawks twice. So, man, it's happened again where I've broken this streak way too early, and you're going to be the one keeping it going. I'll do my best to keep it going, just because that was a genuine mistake. I didn't mean to. I didn't do it like I did last year, where I was like, yeah, I'm done doing this whole picking different teams for the lock. I actually did not mean to do that, so I'll take a mulligan on that one if it's allowed. And the lock was incorrect anyways, so.
Yeah, hey, you didn't even benefit from it. That's just unfortunate.
Yep. And then getting into the next game, the Browns heading into Philadelphia, taking on the Eagles. I hate the Browns. I dislike the Eagles, but I think they will win this one just because the Browns are sticking to Deshaun Watson. And where he goes, no one can follow.
Prison. Anyways, I'm picking the Eagles here as well. I think that, I broke the rule once. I picked the Browns, and then they lost. So clearly, that was karma for picking them. Never doing it again. Eagles this week. And then I got the Colts at Texans for the next one. I'm going to be going with the Colts. Please, Colts, please. I believe in you every week. And you let me down a handful of times. I won't say you've let me down a lot, but you let me down a handful of times. The Titans, I think, are just a whole new level lower than them, despite the injuries for the Colts.
Yep, I also have the Colts over the Titans. It's basically everything you said. The Titans just suck, and I think until they draft a new quarterback, they will continue to be one of the bottom teams in the league. Or if Levis figures things out, that's always a possibility. But yeah, Colts in that one. Then Chargers taking on the Broncos. This one's in Denver. I've got the Broncos taking this one, regardless of Justin Herbert's status. If he plays, if he doesn't, the Broncos are kind of on a roll. Their defense is really good, and the Chargers are just not really on a roll so much. Coming off a bye, they may be a little bit happier, a little bit healthier, but I've still got the Broncos in this one.
Yeah, me as well. I think that the Broncos, it's divisional, so it'll be close. And the Broncos defense edges out the Chargers for sure. And then for the Steelers at Raiders, I'm leaning Steelers. I feel like I haven't seen a whole lot of Raiders this year. Maybe I'm blessed with that, but tough, hard-nosed defense that nearly beat the Cowboys. Despite the Cowboys floundering, the Cowboys are still a top team floundering, when you compare to the Raiders. So I'll be going with the Steelers here.
Yep, I'm agreeing with you there. In our shit show of the week, I've got the Steelers over the Raiders as well. Slightly better of the bad teams, so belief in them is a little bit higher. And then we get into the Falcons at the Panthers. Pretty easy Falcons pick here. It's divisional, and the Panthers did look good for like a week, but they haven't since, so I'll probably continue to pick against them as often as I can.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I agree with the Falcons here. I think Kirk Cousins has arrived for the Falcons buildings, and it's not going to fall apart against the Panthers. with the Lions at Cowboys, this one scares me because it's at Cowboys. The Lions could be very possibly doomed on a 2-point attempt if it needs to happen. But I'm gonna still go with the Lions here. They're my guys. I picked against them, a couple times, and both times they won. So fingers crossed that that's not a trend that I have to pick against them every week. But I'm gonna pick for them this week.
Yep, I am agreeing with you there. Lions over Cowboys for sure. We both dislike the Cowboys a decent amount, and you are a Lions fan. I am a Lions believer, Lion lever, if you will. And
Doesn't roll off the tongue the same.
No, it doesn't. I mean, Bear lever doesn't really either, but
Hey, no, it did.
a little better
Shut
than
up.
the Lions. Anywho, into the Bengals at the Giants. They gotta turn things around at some point, man. This is the perfect trap game where it's both 1-4 teams, but I feel like the Bengals are going to be so heavily favored in this one that they may lose it. But no, I
So
gotta
now.
I gotta take the Bengals over the Giants here. There's no way I can, in good conscience, pick the Giants to beat the Bengals. So
Yeah, I'll agree with that sentiment 100% of the way. And along with that, I'm gonna hit them with my lock of the week. I got the Bengals over the Giants this week. And then for the Monday night football game, we have, which by the way, horrible Sunday night football game that is. But Monday night football, we got Bills at Jets. This is another horrible primetime game. Just because of the issues we've seen be exacerbated with these two teams, and now one of them has a new head coach. I'm going to be going with the Bills here. I don't think they pull off a miracle with the interim and get that interim push for that first win.
yeah, I think most teams when they do have an interim, they kind of get that little boost and they get that little, I guess you call it an interim push. I think they do that, and I guess there's like a small chance the Bills could be without Josh Allen if he exhibits concussion symptoms. So I'll pick the Bills preemptively, but I am going to put my little caveat on this because we're recording on Tuesday and full injury news hasn't come out. If Josh Allen does not go, I'll take the Jets in this one.
Yeah, I may have to tweet if he's not active for the game. A change there.
Alrighty. And that just about wraps up Pick'ems. We've streamlined it a little bit by picking our game of the week and shit show of the week and locks beforehand, so everything goes a little bit more smoothly. Is there any other football-related topics you would like to bring up with the people?
I have zero, nada, nothing, zilch. Let's get on out of here.
Woo! With that, deuces.
Deuces.